Let's get some listener questions, man. That just blew my mind, actually. Firing Sala after, you know what? 4 or 5 games in, after the London trip. I'm surprised they didn't fire. When I was with Miami, they fired Joe. I think they might have fired him on the plane. Man, that was a tough. That's a tough one, guys. That's a tough one. All right, we got some listener questions. Again, I appreciate you guys who bring these in. When it comes to position coaches in the National Football League, what are some characteristics they possess that separate the good from the greats? Experience, accountability, attitude. 3 questions he's asking. I think my number one answer would be curiosity. Curiosity about, am I doing things the best way? Am I doing things in the best interest of the people that are ultimately I'm responsible for, meaning my players in my position? Everything you said is right. Experience helps. Being accountable is a must, but I kind of feel like that's a prerequisite. I know not everybody's accountable, but you feel like you can't be great without being accountable to your guys. Attitude. Everybody has a different coaching style, and I think your ability to navigate the different personalities, especially now that are in the room, is a new skill that maybe they didn't have to deal with like when I was playing. But curiosity, I think more than anything, and just being able to take a look at not just like the scheme, like, oh, this guy's coming up with a new play, let's copy it and do something, or hey, let's think of some new schemes to work, because that is important. But also, like, how are we handling our meetings? Like, are our meetings as efficient as they should be? Am I getting the information across in the best manner possible? If not, is there a better way to do it? How is our practicing? Like, how are my drills? Are we conveying the information we want? Am I giving people the um, am I giving my players the best opportunity to find success on Sunday? And if I'm not doing that, like, what dials can I turn? Is it the communication? Is it the technique work? Is it the schemes? Is it the way that we give information about the person they need to game plan against? Like, all of that stuff is relatively like um, kind of copy and paste year after year after year after year. And the really good guys are digging down and be like, how can I do every bit of this better? Right. And you're not always going to hit a home run, but that curiosity, because I'll tell you what that does is it gets your group really believing that you have their best interests in heart. Question 2, are Gary and Van Ness bad fits for what this scheme is asking of them? Okay, so this is tough. I think Gary will come around. I think the problem with Van Ness is there's not a problem with Van Ness. I think this is who he was in college. This is who he is now. He's not a pass rush specialist. He's not a guy that's going to, he doesn't have the skill set yet to beat an NFL tackle consistently. And of the qualities that like, I think he does in the run game. I think he does some things really well. I think Gary's doing really well in the run game as well. But when you just talk about qualities that are going to separate you as like a defensive end, you just talk about pass rush. Like, he's not a pass rush guy. Like, I don't think that he ever was. And so, this is why when he was drafted, he was drafted really, really high. And that means your ceiling's got to be way above the roof here. And it'll take time to develop. And again, you just don't know what that's going to look like, because while physically he does so many, I'm sure if you put him in the weight room or you watch him, go through a combine, but how much wiggle does he have? How much balance does he have? How much force can he generate out of awkward positions? Like, all of that stuff that makes certain guys unique in this league. Like, what part of that makes him unique, and then how does he hone his game to exploit those things? I think that's the big question that he has to answer, probably for himself as he moves forward. Is it concerning that against a poor defense we couldn't put the game away by getting at least 3 in our final 2 drives? Yeah, I think so. I think that's the expectation, certainly. And it wasn't. The Rams defense has had some really bad moments, but when you watch them, they're pretty fundamentally sound. They're well coached, and I think I think on both sides they had some answers for us. I just think Matt LaFleur is a really, really good play caller right now against anybody as a defensive coordinator. but you still have to execute. And sometimes you're just getting. And the unfortunate thing about offensive football is if one person gets beat, like the whole play can go down. Whereas 10 people can get beat on defense and one person can make a play. So I think Matt LaFleur does such a good job of getting guys the ball with space to run, so they can, like, that one person who has the ball, whether it's Josh Jacobs, whether it's Jaden Reed, like any of those guys can make somebody miss or make something happen. Just give me the ball and let me do this thing. And I think he does that as well as anybody's doing it right now, as far as giving those people the ball. But when you have to, in 4-minute drill, like, what do you got to do? You got to run between the tackles. You have to run when they know you're going to run. You have to move the ball in situations where you're trying to be a little bit conservative, but you're really just trying to put some points on the board because it's a little bit too close to call. So I think that part of the game they can just continue to improve on. But again, it's hard to complain about a win. How much of a step back did Sean Ryan take this game? I get that he's still building his young game. Does he have trouble with a particular type? I thought he took a step back. I addressed that earlier. Particular type. That's an interesting comment. Look, I think he has a. When you're not consistent with your pass set, for example, or your footwork, like if you have problems with your footwork, and that's what I think I demonstrated today with just a couple clips. If you have problems with your footwork, you have problems. It doesn't really matter who you're playing against. If you play against an NFL body, then you might be able to get away with it. But or if you play against a guy that's like a two gapper, you might be able to get away with it. Like, they're not going to kill you because that's not their job. But if you get a guy who's ambitious in their pass rush, who's ambitious in trying to penetrate, who's ambitious with their hands, like, you're going to get found out fast if your footwork's not really good. And for whatever reason, people have off days. This was one of his worst, of this year. This is probably the worst he played. And I don't know if that's fair. It feels that way. And it just didn't look like he was moving very well. So, when I'm not moving very well, my dad told me to go get the jump rope. Mike, at what point do position coaches see and speak to guys like Van Ness and Rashawn Gary and tell them this is what is going to be done on this play, versus allowing them to take the edge, at which point they have been unsuccessful? Okay. I think by this you mean like, hey, I want you to pass rush this way. Well, if they have a stunt, like, here's the thing: if you have a stunt, okay, let me back up. So for a lot of teams with specific quarterbacks, they'll have a pass rush plan, meaning they don't want this quarterback to be able to roll out to his right, release to his right. They don't want the quarterback to release through the pocket and he can run because he can run forever. They don't want him to roll out to his left. He has a tendency to do this, so we want to take it away. I don't know that with Matt Stafford you have a pass rush plan that isn't go get the quarterback because he can't move very well. So that's one. When you're running stunts and twists with linebackers, safeties, pressure looks, ETs, TEs, all those guys, TTEs, all those things. Now you have a way that you do that, and it kind of takes away your creativity. But you're taking away the creativity, but you're also forcing some switches on the offensive line, which is technically supposed to be a difficult thing to do. I think when you get good at it, quite frankly, all the TEET stuff is like the easiest thing you can do for an offensive lineman, because the punch and pass, and again, it takes away from the creativity of the pass rush. With these guys in particular, when you're a free rusher, you have carte blanche. Now you have things you should be doing against this player, and if they're not doing it, you probably need to get with your coach on the sideline. Your coach needs to set you straight. And I don't know if that's happening, but if you're going into the game with an individual pass rush plan and how you're going to attack that guy, at some point, like, both guys are watching film on one another. So that's what's kind of frustrating sometimes, I think, when you watch anybody in the league that's not having the success you think they should. It's like last week's a good example. Like O'Neal, exactly what he's going to do, and you've seen it a million times. So why isn't there a foundational baseline that maybe gets him off his spot a little bit in a little bit different angle, so we can work that this week? And I don't know what they're doing from that regard. That would be an interesting conversation, or interesting watch, like, when you're at practice or at in the meeting room. Is there a position that you feel the least comfortable evaluating, or your own personal knowledge of that position? That's Yeah, I mean, like, listen, if you put me in a room with NFL coach, like an NFL coaching staff, and you said, Mike, I want you to do all the commentary on the quarterbacks. I would, and these, okay, they're running blah 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 over here against this coverage. I would go. I mean, I would like, can you run that back, please? Run it back again. Yeah. So can you run it back one more time? Like, I would not be. That would be tough for me. I could tell you about his footwork. I could tell you about his pocket presence. I could tell you about his eyes, but just understanding what the progressions are and all of that. Like, I'm an amateur at best. At best. Now, luckily, with most of the other positions, confrontational sports kind of fall into basic things you're trying to accomplish. And so, like, I understand how the body moves. And I understand um, how to engage in confrontations and coming out of breaks and all of those kind of things. So uh, that I'm comfortable with. But if you get into like the mental aspect of quarterback play, I'm a fan. I'm just above a fan. Maybe a little bit more than a fan. I don't know. I'm not very high. Can you explain about how injuries affect other positions, i.e., with a cornerback down, does it change the type of pressure calls to the DL? That's a great question, and I would say that if you don't have your guys in the back, so there we know that sacks and interceptions, those are all correlated. Like, the back end has to play well to get sacks, and if the front end's playing well, they're going to throw up more balls for picks. Like, we know that to be true. So there is a relationship there. So if you're missing guys on the back end, then maybe they can throw the ball. They can get rid of the ball faster. Uh, Maybe their game plan changes to max protection because they feel like they can beat you with two or three guys. So yeah, that, like, the play calling from a defensive perspective, you have to say, like, for example, let's say Jair is out. We've had two corners down for the last couple games that are going to see major time, including our best player. So do you fundamentally just say, am I going to blitz more? Am I going to change anything? Am I going to blitz less? Well, I think because you have this new abundance of talent at the safety position, I don't know that they're changing as much as maybe some other teams would. It seemed like the O line struggled. Does it appear to be a mental issue or a physical one? I expected more from the run game against. I think the Rams, like, are pretty good on defense. I know the stats don't say it, but like, when you just watch them play, they they're they're pretty fundamentally sound on defense, and you can't say the same across the board. Maybe with the Green Bay Packers, um, I thought they got into a lot of trouble talking about the Rams now when you put them in nickel and spread them out. I don't know if we did that as much as maybe I thought we would have. And when you talk about, is it a mental or physical thing, I think those you can't separate those two really. Like, if we did everything in walkthrough pace and I told you to take proper footwork, like, most of those guys would be able to do it. But when they get into the game, there's a lot of stuff going on up here, so that messes all your footwork up, right? So I think it's just a question of getting the reps, automating the technique, being able to kind of read and react and make the best decisions possible pre-snap, so you can make the best decisions possible pre-snap and communicate pre-snap, so you can be a really good read and react athlete on the back end, and maybe technique is the means by which we channel our aggression and physicality. And so in other words, I don't think that you can consistently have aggression and physicality or successful displays of aggression and physicality without great technique in this game and body mechanics. And so it's just a question of kind of finding that confidence to do that at a high level. Why is the four-man pass rush not getting home? Yeah, you got to win your one-on-ones. I showed it a couple different times. We've talked about it. Kenny Clark's a phenomenal player, but didn't grow up being a penetrating three technique pass rusher. Like, he didn't grow up in, like the Jets system, like Williams does, where he's like, I penetrate, get to the quarterback. That's all they're thinking about, right? Van Ness is Preston Smith has always been a guy who's going to get you a handful of sacks and pressures, but he's just really good against the run. Van Ness is not a pass rusher. Brooks is a pass rusher, but he's young and he's still trying to figure it out. He makes plays, but to get to that next level, it might take a little time. We don't have another D tackle that's a pass rusher, so I think that's a big part of it. Enigbari is small. He's going to make some plays, but and Rashawn Gary is, I think, is going through some stuff right now as far as getting to the quarterback. But you just kind of feel that'll you just feel like he's going to have like a 3-sack game here pretty soon. So if you needed to really just say where can I improve, I think having some sort of nickel package that addresses the guards with defensive ends in passing situations would at least be like a NASCAR package would be change up. But why we're not getting home is, quite frankly, this team isn't necessarily built from a personnel standpoint to win a ton of pass rush in the interior of the defensive line. Exact same question. What do you make of Love struggles? Overblown or real concern? I think it's just knocking the rust off. Like every single game we did last year, we would point to some of his footwork and what it resulted in, good and bad, just like we did today. So you have that Brett Favre let her rip kind of personality with him. And look, I, for one, am not going to complain about that. But you want to make sure that he understands that his footwork does correlate with his ability to complete passes, and really, just make sure your footwork's always right. And then your decision making, obviously you see that play in the end zone, you kind of go like, what are we doing? Like, that was just in so many ways, that was a bizarre play. I'm talking about the pick six. I just don't think I think everybody let's give him I think the team gives him an immediate pass, right? And the coach is like, dude, what are you doing? And they probably razz him a little bit today when they're watching film. But after that, I don't see that happening again. And another question about the pass rush: when does it make an appearance? I think it's a legitimate question. And I guess the best question would be: do you want to go find a guy that is a true interior pass rush guy? Is that person on the roster? Who would it be, and how would you execute that? So if you wanted to take your 4 best pass rushers right now, I don't even know who they are. Enigbari, Brooks. I want to say Gary and Casey, maybe Preston and Gary. But can you put all 4 of those guys on the field at the same time in a pass rush situation? What does that look like? And with the size of our linebackers now, not saying anything about their quality or anything, just the size of them, is that group too small on a 3rd and 8 to be able to make a play against the run? That would kind of be the question. Because if you think on, let's say, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 plus, you can get all those guys in the game, and if they run belly, then you can stop it. Then maybe it's time to start trying that out. So that's what we got. I don't even know who we're playing next week, but we'll figure it out, just like we always do. And thanks for watching, guys. Thank you to our sponsors, Bet Online. Certainly check me out, Michael68. Keep hitting me with the questions. I appreciate it. Smash that subscribe button, like, rate, and review us on our Pro Stupid Forum channel on YouTube. And until next time,